Thanks, thanks, Daniel. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today to talk about a topic that's very like something that's kept me up awake multiple nights because that's something that I've been wondering with the metaverse, the onset of Web3. How can we make this new world a better world than what exists today? And that's something that I would like to talk about here. I intend this to just seed some conversations, and this is by no means a complete picture of how the situation or how the things are designed today. And I would love for people to go back and rethink about their engagements in the metaverse or question some of the platforms that exist out there to see how they solve some of these problems. Um, Next slide, please. And thank you, Daniel, for doing the slides uh, here for me. And the agenda for the talk is, and I'm sorry, I cannot see my own slides here. Let me walk in the front and turn around and see. Yeah. So the agenda is I'll just go about a brief introduction about myself. We'll talk about the metaverse, about governance in the metaverse. And by no means does governance mean that we are trying to control a lot of the metaverse. It's about just making it a better place for the world. And then finally, what next? Next slide, please. So next slide, please. So yes, I'm an engineering leader at Netflix. I work on architecting infrastructure solutions for building Netflix studios in the cloud. I'm also a TEDx speaker. I typically speak on topics like NFTs, metaverse, cloud architectures, engineering leadership, environmental issues, and how we can use code software to reduce the carbon footprint. Along with that, I'm also an advisor to a bunch of Web3 companies. Some of them are in the crypto and IRA space. Some of them are in secure multi-party computation without consensus. And some of them are just trying to build a YouTube on Web3. I'm an adjunct professor for blockchain at University of Advancing Technology in Arizona. And my experience in building software is at companies such as Apple, Samsung, Box, and Datrium. Next slide, please. So let's now talk about metaverse or metaverses, right? When you look at technology today, technology around us is not inclusive. You use Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms, and many a times you as a user are fine using it. But think about your parents or people that are not very well versed with security. They find it extremely difficult to even log in into these platforms. One other thing is that recent research shed light on some of the practices that are being followed in these social media companies. Although race is not a required field you fill in when you create an account, but they do have a field called ethnic affinity for every user. And what this means is if you're liking some pages or if you're following some content, the algorithms will predict what ethnicity you are affiliated to. And then it'll also give you political ads and advertisements of products that the algorithms think are right for you. And that is racially motivated algorithms at that point. So Facebook and Twitter and others have washed their hands off it, saying that it's algorithms that are taking care of it and not people. But that does not take away the fact that you are being profiled. And that is scary. And that is a problem in today's technology. There is less support for diversity. We see a lot of cases of violence, virtual violence against marginalized groups, against women. And that exists on every platform. And there is very little being done to solve that problem. There is very little support for elderly. Now, if you think about the way people log in into Facebook, it is so easy for people to set a basic password just because they're not sure what passwords to set. And then there are security loopholes that others exploit and hack the accounts. The other thing that is missing today is there is a lack of support for people in need. Think about people that are not mobile. Think about people that are in the hospitals. Think about people that need care. They have very limited interaction on social media. In some ways, they are cut off from the rest of the world. Now, these are problems that exist today. And we are thinking of building a utopia called the metaverse or a multiverse. Can we see that? Can we try to see if we can resolve some of these issues and make it much better for people that really need social support. Can we go to the next slide, please? When you think about the metaverse, right, there are many definitions of the metaverse, and everyone has their own explanation of what it is. It's a collection of things. It's a collection of AR, VR technologies. It's a collection of NFTs, a bunch of gaming avatars, virtual lands. The whole goal of the metaverse is to provide an improved user experience and an interactive world. It is based on allowing everyone a virtual utopian world. That is the definition or the vision of a metaverse. Can we go to the next page, please? However, when we have to think about how this metaverse can be designed to provide social care and social good, the ways and the strategies that can be employed are around profiles being validated by better means. Now, that means that when you log into a Facebook equivalent in the metaverse, you do not really need a password. All you will need is probably some form of an iris scan or a device that can validate that you are the user that you're claiming to be and authenticate and authorize you. So there is more control over security. And at every point in the cycle, all the information is encrypted. This removes the possibility of being hacked, because at no point any of the companies in the metaverse can actually look at the data that you're providing. Also, there are techniques today that allow you to process information and do computation on encrypted data. Typically, when you collect data, your tools will decrypt the data, run the algorithms on the data, and then re-encrypt it and keep it back. However, with federated machine learning and with homomorphic encryption technologies, you can actually run algorithms on encrypted data itself. That is something that can be leveraged in the metaverse to deal with data security. The ideal thing in the metaverse is that it's decentralized. So there is no central controlling authority in the metaverse. And that is one of the great things about the metaverse. That's something that will help social care in the metaverse, because there's no one company that's targeting ads towards you. When you think about elders and elder care, the metaverse can be designed to provide a social network to elders to bond with others. You can actually imagine a world where elders, even though they do not have the flexibility to walk and move in real life, can actually go grocery shopping, can go to the pharmacy, can actually go and interact with other people in a park in the metaverse. They can experience real world phenomena in the virtual world. When you think about patients as well, patients that are, let's say, not mobile and they are in the hospitals, they can interact with the world outside. They can travel to newer places around the world in the metaverse. That is the big advantage that the metaverse provides, and that is how we can think about providing social care and social good in the metaverse. Next slide, please. But there are problems in the metaverse. When you think about why the metaverse came into picture, it was because of the blockchain and Bitcoin. That was the genesis. And Bitcoin, the idea was that we wanted to remove a central entity called the bank. The metaverse can take it forward, and it will remove other central entities such as policing and social justice system. Now, in real world, these are entities that take care or are assumed to take care of the justice around us. But how do we govern the metaverse if all of these entities are not present and everything is decentralized? How do we ensure a free, pluralist, equitable, and a just society? How do we prevent issues with racism in the metaverse, attacks on marginalized communities, and attacks against women? There was a case when the metaverse, or when this idea of AR, VR technology started in 2016. A woman who first came on this platform was with her husband and her friends actually was attacked. And that is when it opened up everyone's eyes as to the problems that exist in the metaverse. It's easy to turn a blind eye towards these issues, saying that they are few and far between. But imagine when there is no control, when there is no one that's policing you, the world will have bad actors that will try to take advantage of the system. How can we work together to resolve these problems in a way that does not harp upon the independence aspect that people have in the metaverse? When we posted the this link of we are having a session on this metaverse, social good in the metaverse and governance in the metaverse, I got a lot of messages saying that you're trying to put control in the metaverse, and metaverse is supposed to be not controlled. But my point is there is some amount of due diligence that we need to do, and some amount of empathy that we need to build in the metaverse. And for that, we will have to weed out bad actors. And I'm sure that all of us would agree that if it means a little bit of control on the metaverse or on the language that is used in the metaverse, it's for the greater good of mankind. And that's what we'll try to focus on. Next slide, please. So now, if you think about existing strategies that can be leveraged in the metaverse, a very simple idea is to have the concept of community managers. When you think about metaverse, it's a community of people, and community managers could be those community elders that guide people, that help moderate the groups, and they help welcome new folks into the metaverse, help them navigate, enforce the code of conduct. However, one thing that we need to note is community managers exist today, but there are problems in the way community management is done. Firstly, community managers are not very well compensated. They're not well trained. They receive a lot of threats themselves. And there is a generic lack of motivation to moderate the community. Now, that is an issue that exists today, and that is why community managers will not scale beyond a point. It's a great way to get started to moderate the metaverse, but it will not work once the metaverse grows beyond a point. Next slide, please. The other idea is crowdsource vigilance. You ask your virtual participants in the metaverse to inform you of bad behavior or to inform each other of bad behavior. You can call out other virtual participants for racism. It is a technique that is being used by many gaming platforms and community. You rely on the game participants to weed out the bad actors from the community. And the only problem with this is it puts too much pressure on participants for no reward of vigilance. And it is not a scalable model because there is very lack of motivation for anyone to report something in the metaverse. People are generally happy doing their own thing. And it's like in the real world, right? When you see someone being racist, unless you really care about someone, or unless you are a person who's really, really motivated about these issues, you would turn a blind eye to it. And there is no motivation for you to go through the entire process of reporting someone and, go through the due diligence of doing it. Although I believe that in the world that we live in, we should do that more often. So that's another idea, but that is not a scalable model again. Next slide, please. So what next? Can we use the metaverse concept of staking to design a system for social good? And the idea is participants in this metaverse will stake some coins or tokens for social justice. These tokens will ensure a free and fair community. And these tokens are effectively just a cut from their staked tokens. So when you go into a metaverse, you will stake your tokens, you'll get some rewards, but you'll reserve some amount of rewards for a general social justice system. And validators will be chosen by the community to be people that will weed out bad actors and as a reward get these tokens. Now the bad actors will lose their entire staked tokens, and for the future will need to stake or put even more tokens to rejoin the community. Bad actors tokens will be distributed amongst the entire community, and you can design levels of bad actions, each one having a different level of punishment. The validators get rewarded in the system, and the participants find a socially just community. So that is one idea that you can use where you can leverage the power of staking and leverage the power that all of these different blockchains have afforded you. And this will be the proof of social good that we are designing at this point. There are many platforms that allow you to also create a social bubble. So what happens is when you are facing a racism attack, an attack against you or against any community, you can trigger a bubble, and that bubble will effectively create a bubble around you and will not allow people to get close to you in the virtual world. Now, that is a great, simple solution to prevent a case when others are trying to touch you inappropriately in the virtual world. Also, as soon as you trigger this bubble, you will record the point or the people around you at that point, and that will be the information that will be preserved on blockchain and will be used by the validators to validate the exact action that was taken and the reasons that were taken. So that is another thing that you can add to staking to make it a fair, equitable system. Next slide, please. The other idea is to actually go back and think about how we are designing the metaverse. Many behaviors in gaming, in the metaverse, and in real world are dictated by the design of the metaverse. Research shows, like I said, that the algorithms are biased, and the design of these games in the metaverse are biased. Unbiased designs led by inputs from social organizations will ensure a fair experience. In Metaverse, we can have quests that can enable community building, collaboration, and empathy, and reward users for achieving those quests. For example, in one of the metaverses, one of the games, I actually saw that the quest was to go back and collaborate with a lot of people and learn something new from every person that you collaborate with. Now, that is an amazing quest because that actually helps and fosters the idea of community building and collaboration. Those can actually help dictate how you behave, not just in the metaverse, but in your real world and real life as well. And these are ideas that you can use to weed out a lot of the issues and make it a better place for people. Next slide, please. The other thing is, how do we try to map the physical to the virtual? Now, bad actors in the real world do community service. They get an opportunity to publicly correct their behavior. Can we do the same in the metaverse? Can we allow the bad actors to do virtual community service or virtual social work? It could be as simple as going and doing some proof of social good again for social organizations that exist in the metaverse. They could do community building for social organizations. They could be community managers for social organizations. They can issue a public apology in the metaverse community for their behavior. And the way we try to map it is also, we will not allow their avatars to be available in the metaverse for some amount of time based on their behavior. And for a lot of people, if you have business transactions in the metaverse, you would not want to be disallowed from participating in the metaverse. So that would again enforce a good behavior amongst everyone. We also need to make sure that we have these rails and guards in place, but we do not want people to exploit them as well by just frivolously claiming that someone is a racist or has made a racially motivated argument or a comment. Now, that is something that we need to monitor against. And for that, we have our validators that will stake their own coins so that they are not motivated to support either party. That is how I think we can try to attempt and solve some of the issues in the metaverse when it comes to events such as attacks against marginalized groups and racism. Next slide, please. That's my time. I hope I was able to see the thought for how the metaverse could be designed. Please feel free to reach out to me on my email or LinkedIn or Twitter. I am happy to discuss further and see how we can make this metaverse or this future a better place for everyone. Thank you so much.
All right, that was an awesome presentation. So, Tejas, so this you said like 20-minute presentation, and the rest of the hour it's a discussion. Yep. So, if you have any question or have a remark, you can raise your hand like this, or you can use the button, in the left side of your screen. You can click on the emoji and then your hand. All right, I see Robert wants to talk. 1 second, I'll put you on the mic. 1 sec.
Hi. I just wonder if I'm the only person here about age 70. If anyone else is over 68 or 69, could you wave your hand?
Oh,
Any software people over age 65? That would be me.
Wow.
Anyone who used punch cards in IT? 80 column punch cards. Anyone who is handicapped? I'm visually handicapped. I'm also a member of a minority in my country. Although I worked mostly in the United States, I'm Canadian. And in Canada, I'm recognized as an Indigenous person. The problems that I would encounter are in a social space which speaks French, because I speak Canadian French. I don't only speak Canadian French, I speak the French of a racial community. And we have a name in French for ourselves. We are the Metis. Anyone here know the Metis of Canada? They're one of the 3 founding peoples of Canada. But what does Metis mean in standard French? Anybody know? Anybody? Unfortunately, it means, please excuse my using a vulgar expression, mixed, I'm doing scare quotes here, mixed blood. An expression which I reject. I am not a person of mixed blood. I'm a person who is descended from multiple women of Aboriginal communities in the north of Canada. Very often women who were displaced from their own homes on the east side of Hudson Bay to living in fur trading on the west side of Hudson Bay. If there are Americans here, I can tell you that my family founded the states of Oregon and Washington. How is that possible? I'd like to tell you one very short story. A famous Canadian, a painter, went to Fort Victoria when British Columbia was an English colony. Vancouver, British Columbia was part of a colony. Went to Victoria, Fort Victoria, and wrote about 2 kinds of people. They're all men, gentlemen. Now, who was a gentleman? Anyone with a beard. And Indians. Anyone without a beard. But guess what? There were 150 men there, and they were all Métis. Now, those problems persist in Canada in the language. People ask me, am I a Mackay or a Mackay? Mackays are wealthy people in Montreal who call themselves Scottish. I'm a Mackay. Guess what? Those wealthy Mackays are all cousins of mine. Because if you had a beard, you could be Scottish. I don't have a beard. I have a few whiskers on my chin. In my avatar, I have tried to build an avatar for a Métis man such as myself, who has, like most native people in Canada, very little beard. I have a few whiskers, only a few, and I have long hair, seriously long hair. There is no avatar for me. So both visually and linguistically, as a Canadian of all things, I find myself in the most awkward situation. It is, of course, worse when I'm in the United States, because Americans mistake me for a white man. Can you imagine? So I wanted to tell you, an old person in the audience who worked for years on the, please excuse the vulgar expression, the bleeding edge in e-commerce. I worked on the first implementations of the biggest e-commerce site, which was making far more money than Amazon. And probably you don't.
You're muted, my friend.
Oh, there's something with your mic.
Yeah, I think you muted yourself.
I wondered when I muted myself. It's because I have Parkinson's.
You were at e-commerce.
There
You were
is
talking about
nothing
e-commerce.
in the metaverse to help anyone whose hands tremble. Imagine trying to hold one of these Oculus controllers with trembling hands. There's no setting for someone who's visually handicapped. There's no setting for someone with Parkinson's. But if you live to be 75, you probably live to be 85 if you're a woman. If you live to be 85, if you're a woman, you'll probably live to be 95 in North America or Europe or Australia or New Zealand. And among your friends will be widows. And those widows will have Parkinson's. What will the metaverse offer them with our trembling hands? Do you even know what Parkinson's is? Do you know what Alzheimer's is? What will Alzheimer's be in the metaverse? And I'd love to come and give you a chat about that one day. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks for sharing. It's really, really thought-provoking. Thanks. And thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate that input.
Looks like we've got a question from Lady K.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to chime in. I actually came in. Oh, okay. Sorry. Hold on. I'm still learning. I don't know if I could be heard. I'm looking for the megaphone.
We can hear you. We can hear you fine.
Yeah, we can.
We heard. Oh, now she's muted.
Oh.
Or they
I
are
came
muted.
in towards, thank you. I came in towards the tail end of the presentation. So I don't want to go off topic or off track, but I'm responding directly to what this gentleman expressed. And, you know, when I first started using AltSpace, I was even new to this whole virtual reality concept. I'm a teacher in New York City. I'm a speech therapist. And it's very interesting that he brought up things like Parkinson's, and I advocate for people with disabilities. And I just started using virtual reality in my speech therapy practice and with my students. And one thing that the students did recognize are, you know, I have a vast, diverse array of students, of these babies. They're beautiful. And, you know, when we were making avatars, and you know, he brought up a good point. You know, I see them, I see everybody trying, and I see, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get to the very specifics of creating avatars that look directly like us, and we do the best we can, you know, for those of us that want to come into the metaverse and represent who we are in reality. You know, but hearing even my students say, and they're younger, I do monitor their time. Don't worry. It's all with therapeutic intent and educational intent. So when I let them into the metaverse, it's for a small amount of time. But these are children that never get the opportunity to really go into virtual reality. I work in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, where, you know, we work with students that have very low socioeconomics. So when they do get an opportunity to do something like go into VR, you know, they want to see themselves represented, you know, in the avatars. And these are things, I know you were talking about behaviors and how people, you know, treat each other in the metaverse, but, you know, if we could all be mindful of what this gentleman was saying, you know, and what these children did express to me. I mean, these are babies that are so innocent, they're unfiltered, and they're only going to say what they see. You know, I can't make myself. I have no one that looks here like me. And, you know, I just think we need to be more mindful and have more options and more elections for everyone that's going to start using the metaverse, because now you have people like me that are infiltrating it into the school systems. You have people that are using it in nursing homes. I did give the idea to a colleague of mine who is now going to start working with individuals with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things of that idea. But, you know, when we work with individuals with dementia, we have to be mindful of things such as reality and how we go back and forth. So these are all questions. I think the metaverse is still new to a lot of us that are just chiming in. I know a lot of folks have been a part of this metaverse for how many years, but then you have people like me that just started. I don't do software. I'm not into IT. None of that. I am just an educator that got bored during COVID. And it opened up a whole plethora, a waterfall of opportunities and experiences that now I feel confident enough to share with my colleagues and, you know, my precious students and clients. So with that being said, I just want this gentleman to understand that there are individuals who hear you and understand where you're coming from, and that, you know, hopefully in the metaverse that we're all mindful moving forward, that we are opening up. This is a floodgate that we're opening up to more audiences, and more people are catching on. I've had friends purchase it. I got the $30 credit, you know, a few times to get free games. So no, I know I'm spreading the word, and I can only imagine what you guys are doing. You guys might be so excited about it. You're telling your family members, you're telling your friends, and it's a diverse group of people who are now, you know, coming into this. People who need, maybe we need to make these controllers bigger and more accommodating for individuals, you know, who need that level of care and support physically. Maybe we have to physically, you know, change these devices. There's a whole bunch of things I think that we can, you know, take back to our own drawing boards and see how we can maximize it, because a therapist being in a room hears you loud and clear. And, you know, now that I'm getting into this a little more and meeting the people who are more versed in this, maybe these are suggestions we could start making to make the metaverse a more diverse and open arena for the new people that are going to come in, because we don't want to turn them off or away. They don't want more of Facebook. They don't want more of Instagram. We have enough trolls there. I know I came into Old Space looking for a totally new media outlet, social media outlet. And this new Clubhouse was cool, but you know, I like to interact with the avatars, and this has been fun and interactive. So as we invite more people in and more people are learning, I think we could, those of us that, or you guys that are more versed in it, could, you know, give these suggestions to these developers, and maybe we can make these things more accommodating to all audiences. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks. It was great.
That was
I see you,
really,
Robert.
really nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And please don't apologize. I think you're speaking on behalf of a lot of people. I think as software developers, we sometimes are out of touch of some of the realities that are around us. So thank you for, you know, giving your inputs. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Robert, you want to say something?
Very short. I didn't hear the word counselor for bad actors. I think we should really think about having a space where people can be referred for counseling. Just what kind of a day were you having? Was it in the morning this happened? Was it in the evening? The other thing is research. We had an immense interactive community on the internet, of which you are probably not aware, called AvSim, AV-Sim, as in simulator. It was huge and it was global. It was guys, almost entirely, guys who flew Microsoft Flight Simulator. And it was highly dysfunctional because of the background presence of Microsoft. So when you say get rid of the bank and have blockchain, there is a place to study this. There are two divergent communities, flightsim.com and avsim.com. I believe they're both still in existence on the internet. And they were huge. And I say, again, very striking, was guys. and a lot of old guys. Thank you.
So can I get it again? F-Sim? I'll just text it to the
AV, AV, as in aviation. A for
Yeah.
Adam, V for Victoria.
Exactly. Okay.
And a more open world called Flight Sim.
Cool. Check that out. Thanks. All right. So still got 20 minutes.
I
Are there
think
people
Triton
that have
has her
ideas?
hand raised.
Oh. Yeah, so you can raise your hand if you want. You can click on the emoji on the left side of the screen and then click on the hand. And then we'll put you on the mic. Triton. 1 second. All right. Yes, you're on the megaphone.
All right, cool. I wanted to thank the people in the audience who've been giving really great feedback. We can't see Tejas, but I'm sure he's furiously taking down notes about these kinds of things. And I think it speaks to a big concern people have about the metaverse is that, you know, everyone's talking about it needs to be decentralized, it needs to be democratic, but ultimately we don't know how these things are being built. And as history tells us, these things are being built by giant corporations who have, you know, private interests. So I'm interested what things look like from your end. You work at Netflix. You have peers who probably work at bigger organizations. What's going on there? What's in development?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think at Netflix, for example, we are not looking at the metaverse. We are not involved in looking at it because we think that the technology is very nascent at this point and not all embracing. So it doesn't like adhere to our motto of lighting the world. And so we are not in it yet. When it comes to my peers and people that I know in the industry that are working on the metaverse, I think when you think about, and I'll give you a great example. You know, we look at the our phones, iPhones being charged. We put a plug in the socket and charge our iPhone. We do not care about the hydroelectricity and how it's being generated in the background and how the power is coming to our homes. I think the metaverse is at the point where people are still figuring out how to build the hydroelectric power at this point. And so we need a lot more infrastructure development in the metaverse for it to truly become reality where people can start using it. You may say that this hydroelectric powers or the backend infrastructure may be built by large corporations, but I think that people in this century and people right now are more aware about the environments just because of the information dissemination that happens. So I don't think there will be one large corporation that can control the metaverse. It'll be a bunch of distributed organizations, and the ones that will succeed would be the ones that keep it decentralized. So I do see a lot of my peers working in such organizations where they are trying to make it like have DAOs in the picture where they do not have, they are not the central authority that takes decisions. Also have active participation from people that belong to diverse backgrounds in designing the metaverse as well. So that was one other point that I raised where you design the metaverse, have quests involve people that come from diverse backgrounds and marginalized groups so that they can effectively help you like with the visuals, with the quests that you have in your metaverse. And there are companies that are trying to do that. That's what I've seen so far. It's such a nascent development at this point. It'll take us some time before we, get to a state that's usable. I hope that answers the question. Cool. Thank you.
Robert, you're on the megaphone.
Hi, for avatars, you could ask Eric Grimson Eric used to be the chairman of the computer science department at MIT. He spent his entire career in facial recognition. He has been for some years the dean of students affairs for MIT. He'll be 70 next year. Eric might know that we had the first software from Bell Labs was accidentally free, Snowball. Probably no one here knows Snowball. The second free software package was Icon. When the computer science department was created at Tucson, Arizona, Department of Computer Science, they released a piece of software called Icon. But then Apple appeared and the word icon turned out to be a bad choice. I mention Icon because Icon was capable of creating avatars. We're talking decades ago. Avatars way ahead of the kind of avatar that is available now using the software, for example, at Arthur, VR networking service. Anyone know Arthur? It's available on Oculus. And certainly way ahead of the avatar creation software that I've seen elsewhere. And I think, visited most of the VR networking sites and apps. But it is worth thinking about. Very early AI software that was aimed at people in the arts and fine arts. That software was able to do avatars way beyond what we're able to do now. And Icon is now known as Unicon, a little bit like unicorn, but take the word icon and just put UN in front of it. And it's now based in the University of Moscow, Idaho, which is a real place. Some people may know. University. Thanks.
Thanks. So maybe it's an idea you proposed some solutions, Tejas. Maybe we can go through the slides and discuss it with the group. I don't know if that's a good idea. For instance, community managers, I don't know, of course, you had some side notes, like some of the solutions, they are not scalable.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Maybe that's an idea.
Yeah, we could explore that. We could go back to the slides and see if anyone has any thoughts there. Let's see. So community managers, these are, like I said, the problems are that they're not compensated well. They're not very well trained, and there's not a lot of template for community managers. Like, what's the code of conduct? It's really driven by sometimes their own understanding of it, and they receive a lot of threats themselves. So there's a lack of motivation when it comes to moderating the community. I would love to hear people's thoughts on this or any opinions on how this can be made better.
I see Sarah has an idea.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I participate in a few communities, and we have, rules of engagement. Like, by engaging in this community, you agree to follow certain rules, and the community, they put the rules together themselves and then agree upon them. It's a self-governing technique, and it can be helpful. I think there will also be self-selection into groups that behave or metaverses that behave the way you like. I know I like Altspace because I feel like there's a lot of like friendly, helpful people, and the controls here are nice. You can create bubbles. There are some other worlds that I've attended that I just maybe haven't learned well enough yet, but they seem a little more chaotic, and you get like people or avatars in your face, and there's less way to control how they interact or you interact with them. So I think that's one thing, but definitely having people, users and creators not only like create the worlds, but create how they want the culture in that world to be, and have them be an active part of that. I'm complete.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for that that input. I think my experience has also been the same, where I feel that some platforms are much better at enforcing great community practices, and the people are generally kinder on some platforms than others. So that's the reason why I think that community management still has, in the initial days, is still the best way to start and seed the idea of having some form of moderation. The next one was the fact that we can have virtual participants crowdsource, and we crowdsource the vigilance with other participants. And it's a technique that's already used, but I would like to ask, like, would folks here, and I think I know the answer, but I'll still ask, how motivated would people be in general to be like a virtual participant that is calling out bad behavior, doing the research on bad behavior, looking at some data, talking to the required people, and then presenting a case for it? How, without any reward per se, how motivated would everyone be here to do that?
It makes me think about YouTube or like flagging videos. It's, I don't know. I think there's a small line between, like, helping the it can feel a little bit like snitching or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep. And one thing is also there that how do you validate it? Like in YouTube, if you flag a video, someone can look at the video and say that, oh, you know what, it's good or it's not good. But in the metaverse, when you flag something, you need to really get all the information before someone makes a decision on it. And that information collection, the process to do this should be in place. So you need a way to persist the state at that point. You need to persist the conversation. You need to persist the actors, where they were, and a lot of other information. Like in real world, you need to collect evidence. So that, how would that be designed as is an open field where I don't know if anyone who's doing research in that, but I'm sure that as metaverse gets more popular, there will definitely be streams of research in this topic.
Can I add two things that happen to be negative? Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
The first negative,
Please.
if I could say, out of a lifetime working in IT, and my father worked in COBOL, I worked with a lot of large corporations that you all know by name. The one thing I learned was the willingness of their senior vice presidents to fib. Given that our vice presidents knew that they fibbed, our vice presidents would fib too. And they would fib even in quasi-judicial settings, such as state, talking the United States, state-run boards, public service boards. They would fib about the internet. They would fib about our capacities. They'd fib about where we were at, for example, on multi-tenant services. That's the first negative thing. The second negative thing, please do not be offended. Watashi wa Nihongo wa hanashimashou. I can read Japanese because I can read Japanese kanji. When I go on the internet, I do a little check to see if there's any reduction in child pornography in Japanese. Often created in Vietnam. I have many friends from Vietnam. Please do not think I'm trying to offend anyone. Often created in China. I see no sign of any reduction in child pornography, I mean grotesque child pornography. I have complained to Canada's GRC, RCMP. I have complained to many responsible actors. At any time, I can show someone how to check the presence of grotesque child pornography. Now, the Japanese are tolerant of sexual relations between adults and children. I do not mean to offend anyone. They're particularly tolerant of sexual relations between boys of 12 and men of any age. Things which we would not accept in Helsinki, Copenhagen, Berlin, Montreal, Boston, Australia, New Zealand. When we start merging VR between English speakers and Japan, how are we going to address this? We do not want to have links to child pornography in our virtual world, and I see nothing being done because of the sensitivity of this issue. I read Japanese to read poetry, and I can tell you I was not aware of this problem, but I see that we're making no headway at all. I'm sorry to have such a negative thing to tell you about. But I will tell you, fibbing, we need to have an idea how we are going to deal with Meta when Meta fibs. I can tell you, Microsoft continues to fib to me in the world of what's new. It is part of their culture.
This can be maybe it's a bit. What do you mean with fibbing exactly? I didn't get that.
Not telling the truth. Shall I give you a clear example?
Sure.
Executives come into our executive suite. The executives are from Redmond, Washington. The executives tell us that the new Microsoft product is ready for use in prime time on mission critical software. Next day, I meet the lead software engineer on that project. And that software engineer says to me, whatever you do, for God's sakes, don't do anything that's mission critical. This is barely out of prototype. These are lies that cost millions of dollars. But in this community, which is to be open, how are we to deal with corporations that do not tell the truth? It's a fact of life in IT. It's the reality.